I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, but if you love indoor plants, you're going to get a pest at some stage. Taking preventative steps is always the best method for pest control, but it is not always possible. Sometimes bugs can sneak in through the window or come in on a pet or a new plant. Luckily, most indoor houseplant pests are fairly easy to identify and treat. The method I usually opt for is to wipe down the leaves and also spray with an insecticide. You want to quarantine the plant as well and repeat the treatment for at least a week. Here are some of the common creatures that may be lurking in your leaves. In my experience, bugs like to hide underneath the leaves, so make sure you're looking there if your plant suddenly looks a little sad. Now, unfortunately, not all pests are visible, and sometimes you don't realize you have one until your plant starts to suffer. A key indicator of a problem is if your leaves start to go yellow rapidly, or if you've suddenly got damage on your leaves that you can't explain. Some are super obvious as well, like this little happy, hungry caterpillar. Let's go through how I treat scale, thrips, fungus gnats, and mealybugs. First up, let's go through scale. Scale is usually white, brown, or green, and the size and look varies depending on how old they are. This white scale is young, and this large brown one is a more mature bug. You might have scale if your plant is thriving 1 minute and then the next minute is losing leaves, has changed color, or has stopped growing. It's time to check for pests. Pests like thrips and mealybugs like to hide under the leaves, so make sure you check each and every leaf. My ficus was looking a little sad, and on inspection I found scale on one of the leaves. Scale is pretty common, but it's also really easy to get rid of. You can just wipe them off with a cloth or a Q-tip soaked in alcohol, or like me, just use your finger. Make sure you check each and every leaf because they do like to hide, especially in any leaves that may have curled. After removing all the little pests, you can see we're not done yet. Next, I like to pop them in the shower and rinse them off really well. This is the top and the bottom of the leaves. It's a good idea to grab any plants that were nearby, even if they look totally fine, because they may have transferred. Blasting the leaves helps to remove any little residue, leftover bugs, or eggs that there may be. Next up, grab your favorite insecticide. I like to use white oil. I find it's really effective and also helps with leaf shine. It's also fairly cheap and accessible. Next, just give your plant a really good spray down. Make sure you do it under the leaves as well as on top, and we're done. Super easy. Being the plant lover that I am, I can never just leave a plant in peril, so here is an example of how I saved one in an Airbnb without any insecticides. The plant looks like it's never been wiped down in its life. There was dust covering all the leaves and the stems. As well as dust, she also had a pretty bad scale infestation on all the leaves and the stems as well. As I was just a guest, I didn't have any white oil or neem oil, which is what I would usually use to treat this. Also, of course, no fertilizer or secateurs, so I just did what I could. I went in with a damp cloth and wiped the stem and the leaves, and then also did the same for the scale. I picked off what I could and then used the cloth. I used some warm water to help remove it and did manage to get most of it off. I even ended up removing a few leaves because they were too far gone, and they were the leaves at the bottom of the plant anyway. After doing what I could tell she looked way better, and I gave her a really big drink of water. She ended up taking about 2 liters before the water started coming out the bottom, so she was thirsty as well. Let me know if you would have done the same. Now, mealybugs. Mealybugs are very easy to spot because they are quite large and white and fluffy. Like lots of plant pests, they do not like humidity or moisture, so you will often find them on cacti or succulents. To treat these, you can go in with a spray and wipe of white oil as well, or opt for a Q-tip dipped in some rubbing alcohol, which you can then wipe the pest off with. Alternatively, you can go for a more organic option and look for a carnivorous bug. This poor plant had mealybugs a few weeks ago, and although I have treated it, there is always eggs and little babies hiding. I just found a ladybug, and ladybugs are carnivorous, which means that it's going to find any little soft bugs and eat them. If it comes across any mealybugs or thrips or anything else, it's going to chomp on them. Speaking of which, let's talk about thrips. These are the worst pests that you can get. They destroy plants and are really hard to see. My prized Pelé has been through it. A few weeks ago, I noticed a few of the leaves going yellow and then these weird little black dots. I've had great success using a neem dredge before. To do this, you just need to add neem oil to your watering can and then water your plant as usual. This definitely flushed out whatever was in the soil, and I used a spray on the leaves as well. Whilst this combination did stop any bugs that were lurking, there was still way too many leaves going yellow. This discoloration can't be undone, so it's best just to remove the leaves. You can see where I first took the cuttings, there is already new leaves forming, but I still really don't know what the cause is, so we'll see. The plant is still pushing out new growth on the top and the bottom, which gives me hope. You can also completely cut back Pelés and they regrow. They're also super easy to propagate, so I know she will live on one way or another. But I am still really sad and hoping that I don't have to do the full chop on this Pelé. Now for the easiest to get rid of, fungus gnats. If you have a gnat problem, it is probably because you are top watering your plants. When you top water, you can sometimes get a layer of fungus on the top of your plants, which is what the gnats are attracted to. You want your topsoil to be fairly dry like these ones, not moist. An easy solution is to swap to bottom watering and then also make this easy DIY trap with apple cider vinegar and soap. I make a few of these and put them around the affected areas, or also use them if I'm going traveling. I find they are much more effective than using sticky traps. Now let's talk about the different ways I prevent pests. One of my favorite methods is to frequently use neem oil. This is an organic product which is both pet safe and people safe. Some people think it has a bit of a funky smell because of the sulfur, but I honestly don't mind it. To use neem oil, you want to dilute it first or purchase one that is already diluted. You then spray the front and back of your leaves and wipe it off. You don't want to leave the oil sitting on the leaves because it can clog the pores over time. Spraying and wiping your plants is also a really good chance to check for pests. You don't want to set and forget your plants because this is when an infestation can happen. As I showed before, you can also dilute it with water and pour it into your plant's soil. And just be sure not to put your plant in direct sunlight after you have sprayed it with neem or any insecticide. Another great way to prevent pests is by frequently showering your plants. Showering your plants is a great way to increase their humidity, which a lot of pests don't like. It cleans the leaves from any dust that may have fallen off them and also dislodges pests. Whilst it's fine to spend time wiping down smaller plants, ones like this can take forever. She's also quite tall and I am not. As well as dislodging any pests that may be lurking, showering your plants is a great way to give them a little spa day. Trust me, they will absolutely be glowing afterwards. You could also do this outside with a hose, but it doesn't make a very cute video. Similarly, I like to mist my plants as well. This stops the leaves from drying out, as well as deterring pests that like the dry. Removing any old matter that they might hide under is also a good idea. I like to pull off my leaf sheaths because it is very satisfying as well. This is also one of the reasons I never hesitate to cut off any dead or dying leaves. Matter that is dying attracts pests of all kinds, so it's best to chop it off when you first see it. Your plants will be happy and healthier, and it's also very satisfying to do. Happy planting!